able to use a class action and go to the different banks and say, here's all the lawsuits, the syntaxing on every one of them is identical. They may be 38 different banks, and the sentences may be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they may have moved the sentences around, but all the same sentences appear someplace with that exact phraseology. And when you do an overlay of the whole thing, we account for 99% of every one to be identical, but the modification of the grammar with the math codes, you can flip these things and read 300 words a second, and in 15 seconds go through a 15-page document and say, this has got 5,000 mistakes on it, and that isn't a mistake. That's not a misspelled word. That's engineered. And in 2 places of the document it says, false and misleading statements is a criminal penalty, and a misspelled word doesn't change the document. There are no misspelled words. The syntax is wrong in all 5,000 words. It's engineered. It's not a mistake. Now, there's a thing called the McNaughton Rule. That's M apostrophe N. McNaughton. N-A-G. I think that's how it's spelled. It's the very first word under the letter M in Black's Law Dictionary, 4th, 5th, and 6th, 7th, and 8th editions. It doesn't appear before that because the McNaughton Rule came out in 1966, and Black's 4th edition was published in 1968. That's why it's in the 4th. If you've got anything earlier, it won't show up. Okay, what is the McNaughton Rule? It's called a right-wrong rule. The right-wrong rule means that if you have knowledge of a lie, perjury, false and misleading statements, or fictitious conveyance of grammar, and you do it, that means you're guilty. If you don't know you've done it, then you can't be held liable for it. Like a police officer standing up and say, I saw you go through a stop sign. But the way he said it, the grammar was wrong. So he doesn't understand syntax because he was never trained in it. But the fact that you went through a stop sign, if you can make an argument of physics, 2 objects can't occupy the same space, it'll get thrown out. But if you said you failed to stop for a sign, and then you rolled past the sign, or you rode through the intersection without stopping, using the correct grammar, then you'd be found guilty, okay? Because he's a professional witness. And after all, you would be in a fiction court, and 99.99% of the people wouldn't even know they're being hoodwinked by syntax in the first place if you didn't know how to speak in the correct format. So the McNaughton Rule, the judge stands up and says, and Banks stood up and said, for 3.5 years, I don't know anything about this. The lawyers wrote this for us. The lawyers work for the corporate. The corporate is a machine. The machine says, we're looking for a person. A person is a corporation. We're looking for a human being. We're looking for a thinking person. The thinking person doesn't exist. So what do we have? We have a corporation with a signed confession, because this corporation stood up and said, I'm responsible for this, give me the house. And then I have a signed confession for false misleading statements, and I can do my job and you can get paid. Pretty simple. And when they, under the McNaughton Rule, they did this a few times and they got away with it. And then I said to them, doing something 6,000 times to perfection is not a misspelled word. That's a perfection of engineering. And you can't stand up and say you did something 6,000 times and didn't understand what you were doing. That ain't going to wash with any jury. And I got my conviction. They confessed, and we've already picked up $140 billion in damages since March 6th, just to show you how effective I am. The judgments on my technology are the biggest in recorded history anywhere on the planet. And I'm the cash cow for the bank, for the government, for the post office, and for the people. Everybody likes me. Even the criminals love me, because they're going like, if I get into trouble, I'm going to call Dave. So nobody bothers me. Go ahead.
When we file for the second one, after you say after the 48 days, it's got to be 48 at least.
Yes.
48 to what? What if you don't get on 48 days, like 50-something?
Oh, you got a year to file after so don't worry about, that's as fast as you can file your fault. You're going to take your quo warranto complaint and your fault document contract claim, and you're going to send it to the Attorney General to the attention of the Indiana False Claims Act Task Force.
Sent in by a third party.
No, by you. You only got to do the first servicing with an independent party for the quo warranto. After that, you can take care of all your own filings. You'll be given that form along with instructions of who to contact. Okay? So I've got all this covered. These forms just came out the 28th of August. Today is the 24th of September, so they've only been on the market for 4 weeks. You will not have a trial date for the document, contract, federal, postal, vessel at all.
Okay, I'm talking about the...
Bankruptcy?
No,
the other criminal side. Okay. The criminal, when that takes place, I'm a claimant on your case. I'm a claimant on all your cases that I've written. That means you can put me on the phone and I can testify by phone. My question to the prosecuting attorney is, can you produce the law, rule, regulation, or code written with the correct parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of perjury? I've syntaxed the lawsuit. I've syntaxed the DA, the indictment. It's physical evidence that have been supplied to you. Your lawsuit should be turned over to the Attorney General in Indianapolis or in South Bend, Indiana, where you have your federal courts, as this individual at the state level is creating an illusion by which he is trying to say there's a law that doesn't exist to prosecute me under the McNaughton Rule. And you invoke the McNaughton Rule under the right-wrong, showing why this person under Title 42, 1986, for knowledge of the correct parse, syntax, grammar, stop and correct his own paperwork to do it correct. If you have a complaint against me, then use correct grammar. Show me where the Congress, the Senate, the legislature, and the Supreme Court of the state of Indiana has created a law, rule, regulation, or code that is in the correct grammar by which I've violated. Doesn't exist. I'll tell you that right now. So don't pretend like you understand what they say. The answer to any question is, can I see that in the correct parse, syntax, grammar for the avoidance of the perjury? And I don't care how many times you got to say it. Do it for an hour. You got 50 questions, repeat it 50 times.
Repeat that again. Can I see?
Okay. The word order is spelled how? O-R-D, a vowel and two consonants? No contract?
So you just ignore it or not?
There. You can repeat that sentence to anything that fiction has to say to you, and in most cases we'll vacate the case within that one sentence.
Even when they ask me for my name?
We did that already. What is your name? Now he's going to say, well, arrest the nom de guerre, uppercase spelling, which is a dead person, name assigned to your driver's license, because it identifies you as a nom de guerre dead person. And as a citizen, you have your state ID as a nom de guerre identity, henceforth putting you in the jurisdiction, but you've already entered the courthouse, so therefore you left Indiana. You now are in the state of Indiana, which is the name of the courthouse, as a foreign vessel in dry dock controlled by the port authorities. While on that vessel, you have now trespassed, and no matter what you're there for, you're in a trespassing position, unless you have a United States passport and you have your paperwork filed ahead of time with the clerk of the court in possession of the stamp, put my business card on with a flag on it, a stamp, and you would then become a postmaster under the correct parse, syntax, grammar, advertise with your contract to say, I have a contract here with the correct parse, syntax, grammar. This individual sitting next to me, who would be the DA, doesn't. So therefore, you're in a superior position. Because you signed a stamp, you now become the federal court judge in that plane because that's a federal flag on a federal plane. You have a federal stamp and a federal flag on your paperwork, and you're wearing a federal flag. So how does a